The Exorcist is a film dealing with the supernatural. Parental discretion is advised.
We ask that you follow these simple safety tips during your journey across the space-time continuum.
Because I understand how disturbing this might be, I decided to go with more of a cute way of doing it instead of the usual thing you might expect from an H.P. Lovecraft story.
His vision of darkness, of evil, of cosmic horror, of elder beings from beyond is unparalleled.
His writing techniques were so unusual that, yeah, you could use Lovecraft as the starting point for a new kind of modernist horror, if you will.
To him who shall come after, and how he may get beyond time and ye spheres.
Enjoy your flight.
Back at the beginning, this film is a Mobius strip.
This is why I hate time travel plots, because this is kind of like the Back to the Future version of timelines, where people still remember events as people like disappear, or events, just little events change, but not everything.
And we're discovering the unlovely truth about time travel, that one can't appear in the Texas State School book depository on November 22nd, 1963, and hope to stop the Kennedy assassination.
Who the hell is John F. Kennedy?
I am punishing the Adams. I am making an example of them. An object lesson, a thing.
Let's begin with the setting. Almost the entire movie of Alien is set on an interstellar spaceship called the Nostromo. The interiors of the ship are a direct reaction to Stanley Kubrick's vision of the future in 2001: A Space Odyssey, and to a smaller extent,
Star Wars, a piece of fundamentalist science fiction, if ever there was one, and turned the clocks back.
It was the first time people really took science fiction seriously.
And it was a time rip. Well, that means that we're no longer in our own time, ladies and gentlemen.
But with Lovecraft, I think that it's a much more present horror of the future.
I've always wanted to tackle H.P. Lovecraft. I've always wanted to do something with him. It's very hard.
What you need is a cinematic equivalent of Lovecraft's prose. That's the problem. And that's very hard to achieve.
Because he describes indescribable horror. I mean, what is it? What does it look like?
It has to be very, very stylized and very particular.
Is it a sound? Is it a rough texture or a smell? What?
In the context of a book, though, of course, it's kind of left up to your own sort of mind to interpret how it looks.
He's a fabulous writer, very fluid and very over the top now as we read him.
The way he told stories was sometimes antithetical to the way we are accustomed to receiving stories.
The thing I love about him as a writer, it's not something that I've done particularly in my movies, but as a writer, his stories usually lead up to the last sentence being the shock.
He told iMagazine, "I think that the power of the ending is based on the subconscious emotional reaction of the audience, which has a delayed effect."
That nothing is explicitly answered, and the more times you view it, the more guesses you can make.
To be specific about what it's supposed to mean spoils people's pleasure and denies them their own emotional reactions.
particularly in the unique manner in which they conveyed both horror and beauty.
Where language is no longer capable of describing the experience.
Yeah.
But there's some things that ain't no amount of reasoning can make sense of.
Not something that our rationality can adequately comprehend.
The essential reason is not possible to comprehend intellectually.
It's like the closest representation that our minds can comprehend.
Gross and disgusting.
Yeah, it's very sort of like Lovecraftian, kind of left to your imagination type thing.
Well, Lovecraft's always talking about something from beyond, something out there. There's some, either a god or a force or a creature that's used to be in control here and is now trying to take back control and is waiting to somehow revisit us once again.
The old gods, the forgotten gods, rule the darkness.
The old gods and Lovecraft lore and so forth,
his take on terror. There's something unseen that wants to come and take back its world from us.
Exiled gods and monsters lurking in limbo in another dimension, waiting for an apocalyptic return to Earth.
With plans for the destruction of man that are beyond imagining.
Right, that's the
end game.
That's the end game, or that's the cosmic battle that really, I think, part 18 leans into.
Where did they go? Space?
Not into space.
You idiots.
Into the space between spaces.
Why is it that we usually ignore the fourth dimension? You see, we can move in the other three. As the doctor said, up, down.
Forward and back, and then the other one is moving left and right.
Forwards, backwards, sideways.
You're moving through different
story.
panels of the same place.
Sure.
So you are moving literally in time. You are not moving in. You're not moving in space. You're moving in time. There you go.
So this is a fourth dimensional game.
But when it comes to time, we are prisoners.
August the 4th, I am no longer a slave to history and to time. I have finally conquered the last extremity, death.
Those are the side dressing on the sense of cosmic amazement that Lovecraft had, contemplation of the universe, very similar to Einstein.
He didn't like Einstein, but he was very quick to assimilate Einstein's ideas. He didn't like quantum theory, but he almost understood it. Yeah, this was it. He, in some ways, his stories represented the kind of landscape of fear.
Fear has always motivated people ever since there have been tribes. That's the best way to get people to do something, is make them afraid.
The sense of fear of God, not that they believe in God.
Including the fears of man's relegation in importance, given what we were starting to understand about the cosmos.
And this gets to the heart of what Lovecraft was all about, the futility of man's knowledge.
Human knowledge can't make a damn bit of sense of them.
Extraterrestrials so bizarre and unfamiliar that we won't see ourselves in them.
I think one of the most frightening things of all is a quality of reality combined with a sort of his own form of fantasy. And I think that's what makes it stronger, is the reality, not the fantasy. Yeah?
Make them afraid of something.
Like a John Carpenter monster that keeps getting uglier the longer you look at it. Men who have reached out to help got their limbs torn off. As we all stood there, stunned, a leviathan arose from the flailing, horrific mess.
With the group designing the monster, they couldn't help but notice parallels between it and the creatures Rob Bottin designed in John Carpenter's The Thing.
Have sort of combined to create, it's like, John Carpenter's The Thing, and you don't really know who is who anymore.
I think the idea of a faceless kind of amorphous evil that we can't fight was terrifying. It's something beyond us. It goes to Lovecraft. There's some force that's coming to get us.
As scary as things be, Lovecraft keeps ramping it up. Every time we meet some scary-ass alien, old HP drops an even creepier alien on our asses.
But also, there's something else out there, and probably something beyond that. The point is, it's a never-ending story, and it makes the universe seem so much larger.
The unknown and creating the sense of terror and unsettling feeling around.
What exactly the heck is on that card?
They have to make their own connections.
The mystery of the obelisk was incredibly provocative.
As it stands, unexplained, as a bow to the unknowable.
Truth is something useful. It's not something that has a value in and of itself.
Will you be good enough to explain all this?
First of all, I would like to make one thing quite clear.
Yes.
I read an essay by the great master H.P. Lovecraft where he said that you should never attempt to explain what happens as long as what happens stimulates people's imagination, their sense of the uncanny, their sense of anxiety and fear. And then Stanley Kubrick was commenting on Stephen King's The Shining. He highlighted a sentence. It was as if there was another overlook now lay scant inches beyond this one, separated from the real world, if there was a such thing as a real world, Jack thought, but gradually coming into balance with it. And Stanley Kubrick noted in the right-hand margin, "Don't explain." And so
Nick asked, what are one of your favorite H.P. Lovecraft stories?
I like a lot of them. The best one for me is The Color Out of Space.
It's generally recognized that this is his finest work. And I stayed up all night reading the thing, and it just knocked my socks off.
He'll describe The Color Out of Space as only a color by analogy.
In the form of books, comics, video games, music, and film. The movie Hellboy borrows many visual references and themes from Lovecraft, as does Stephen King's The Mist, and later down the line, the movie's adaptation.
But I like the Dunwich Horror, I like the Rats in the Walls. Those are great stories. There's one called Pickman's Model. It's a terrific story.
I never explain anything.
Some duke or other with a name like a boot said never explain, never apologize.
That explaining sucks the very meaning out of the things that you care about.
Even if it be sucked from the operator's very bones.
They should write that over the gates of Wormwood Scrubs.
There was a time in my life when I thought Lovecraft was really terrific.
The incredible virtuoso that he was with craft. The craft is impeccable. The craft is impeccable.
Lovecraft! Nah, I mean.
Am I right?
Eldritch forces, right? Now, so you could say, well, these must be understood as like fantasy or supernatural horror stuff. Lovecraft it does make sense to call it science fiction because he's saying this is all scientific. It's just a science that's much further advanced than the science that we know.
And a sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic.
Live in front of the camera, like a magic show.
Yes, and I hate magic.
I like magic.
Yeah, I don't like magic, and I never did. But this one, suddenly I walked out of this movie theater going, ah.
Rich, are you saying all magicians are aliens?
Unlicensed and underground, they represent magic's dark side.
So Cthulhu coming down from the stars, or these other creatures, coming down from space, they're actually relying on an understanding of the universe that eclipses our own understanding of the universe.
So what you're saying is this movie has a 2001 connection.
Oh my God! Is that why I want to beat it with like a bone?
It's not clear exactly how influenced Lovecraft is by Nietzsche. He's read Nietzsche. He knows people who've read Nietzsche. There were a lot of misreadings of Nietzsche at the time. This whole notion of like the Superman and all that. Lovecraft doesn't seem to be that interested in that idea. He's more interested in the cosmic implications of a universe that doesn't have, any sort of order in it, or if it does, it's an order far beyond our understanding.
And this, combined with an increasing distrust of organized religions, allowed him to create an entire pantheon of alien gods, strange creatures, and dark cults, all with indifference to mankind as a whole.
Dark universes where unimaginable and often indescribable horrors test the barriers between our world and theirs.
Some poor schmuck down the road is left staring into this kind of Nietzschean monster maw abyss where the economy kind of rises towards you like a sand dune in a sand monster in the Dune series.
We shouldn't call him a monster. He's better than that. So I think that's the first answer, that he's better than a monster. He's far more primal and far more frightening and far more realistic.
Anyway, here's the Haunted Palace. This was the first of many movie adaptations of the works of pulp icon Howard Phillips Lovecraft, HP to his friends. Since although director Roger Corman shot it under the title of Lovecraft's The Case of Charles Dexter Ward, distributor AIP retitled it The Haunted Palace.
Critics complained that much like how The Monster was an amalgamation of the different crew members, the film felt like a combination of a bunch of other films, like Alien, The Thing.
Alien was strongly influenced, tone-wise, of Lovecraft. And one of the things it proved is that you can't adapt Lovecraft effectively without an extremely strong visual style.
Another Twilight monster, Phronima, the inspiration for the Alien movies.
Like an Alien ripoff, but done with like a huge budget and like real actors.
The outer space movie that Alien is a ripoff of this 1958 movie.
The Terror from Beyond Space.
The Terror from Beyond Space. So, look, the story is exactly the same. The Terror from Beyond Space is exactly the same story.
The It is a space alien. Apparently, we don't know.
Wait, is Pennywise an alien? No.
Well, you think of it in Lovecraftian terms.
It's a cosmic entity. There's this cosmic space turtle
who pulled the universe through cosmic waters with infinite slowness.
That vomits up our galaxy. He's from the Macroverse, it's called. He's sort of the good figure, and then it's like the negative kind of counterbalance to that. It somehow crash lands centuries ago.
And from the ashes, new horrors arrive to take their place.
And this is something that happens in the book. There is a giant spider.
Well, it's not supposed to be literally a spider. It's just the alien's true form, right?
It's the likes of which no one had ever seen before. Except in our darkest nightmares. No one was safe.
But in the TV movie, it's just a big, stupid-looking rubber spider.
You gotta be fucking kidding.
Very bizarre, and the people who are promoting D-Wave and who are working for D-Wave actually mention H.P. Lovecraft, and they call it the Old Ones, and they claim that the Old Ones are providing the information into the D-Wave computers.
The result of the Warlock's attempts to mate human women with elder gods, and thereby open the gates to Yog-Sothoth.
Yog-Sothoth knows the gate. Yog-Sothoth is the gate.
Yog-Sothoth's primary purpose is to be the liminal membrane between all forms of conventional separation. By invoking it, one may be transported to anywhere in time and space.
Joe Dante was the first pick to direct, but since the film was taking too long to get underway, he left to go work on the film that would eventually become Gremlins.
The scene Billy and Gizmo watch while falling asleep marks the transition from narration to reality.
Well, there's only one thing left.
No, General.
Yes, atomic weapons.
It was Dante's idea to bring in Nigel Neal.
H.P. Lovecraft influenced Prince of Darkness, as well as Nigel Neal.
Dante felt that he was perfect for what Carpenter wanted to create because of his work on the Quatermass series.
Carpenter didn't want to write this one, so they brought in famous British sci-fi writer Nigel Neal. Dino De Laurentiis, the film's distributor, was unhappy with Neal's screenplay. He passed it off to Carpenter and Wallace and asked them to add in more gore. Neal was disgusted with the changes and asked to have his name removed from the credits.
And if you pay close attention, you'll notice that it's Neal University in the movie, as well as the author, the screenwriter of Prince of Darkness was Martin Quatermass.
It's no wonder why everyone was confused. Well, anyway, let's get on with the Alien films.
Now, think about all those people that created them. Technicians, engineers.
The Engineer was an interesting one because everything else on the box was designed within a square. The engineer that's hidden away in the design had to be designed once the box had turned into its star shape.
These guys were incredibly technologically advanced, and they had a city in the South Pole full of buildings with non-Euclidean geometry.
They returned to revive the Engineer, coming across thousands of black goo ampules in a cargo hold. David reveals the Engineer was heading to Earth, obviously to destroy humanity, as in order to create, sometimes one must destroy.
Thus adding to the great chain of life.
So this one guy,
he starts coming into this knowledge from the government about this stuff called black goo. Okay, and what black goo is supposed to be is this sentient, basically blob of black, darkest nothingness that they've been playing around with in the military-industrial complex, and it's been giving them knowledge about all sorts of stuff from space and time travel, but also it's extremely hostile and it has its own attitude. And they say that they pulled this stuff from the depths of the oceans.
And they also had a hand in creating an amusing race of apes that they loved to toy with, later to be known as humans.
And let them evolve, right? And then instruct.
As the mythology grew, the oil grew with it. The oil then, if it stays in you, it can gestate into the alien from the movie.
Very cool to actually have this kind of a revelation within the Aliens universe, because it provides yet another thing that connects this all together.
I want the stones.
I think it's a medium. A medium being used by some kind of alien creature that uses it to body jump.
Finds a body, gets inside, uses it to move around.
And then the alien from the movie can then become a gray.
This means that LV-426 was a planet testing site used by the engineers for the black goo, much like LV-223 was in Prometheus.
And I was thinking about that when I was watching. Do you know? Have you seen Prometheus?
I haven't.
It's really grim. Humanity's been built by aliens.
They were also masters of genetic engineering, as seen in their creation of a slave race known as the Shoggoths, which are pretty much the things from The Thing.
Oh, you're kidding me. So somebody went back in time and ripped off John Carpenter's The Thing?
My earliest recollection when I was about 5 years old was seeing The Thing from another world.
But Hawks had turned the story's shape-shifting alien into a Frankenstein's monster like Behemoth.
They all emerged out of my personal visual world, which I call biomechanical.
The old alien that Ridley Scott wanted to have for his film.
Giger said that Lovecraft was an important inspiration for him, which I think you can see clearly in his designs.
Do you think Giger succeeded in conveying Lovecraft? He's a Lovecraft aficionado too.
Oh boy, did he. I mean, there is no other artist who has managed to convey the Lovecraft quality other than Giger. He's the man.
H.R. Giger would go on to be responsible for designing almost everything in the film that's alien, which includes this little guy right here. Giger based the kernel of his designs for the chestburster on a triptych created in 1944 by Francis Bacon called 3 Studies for Figures at the Base of Crucifixion.
I see paintings by Francis Bacon, and it was, like you say, thrilling.
I kind of like this one.
Thrilling.
Shape-wise, it's also a little bit similar to Dale's posture when he's emerging from the portal in New York.
If that machine can do what you say it can, destroy it, George, before it destroys you.
Things start to look kind of dismal.
And it's about as bleak an idea as you can imagine.
I'm somewhat of a dark person anyway, and I have a overriding cynicism about a lot of things.
And this is where the theme of cosmic pessimism comes up.
Saying there is nothing. David's head nearby chimes in, agreeing with him, saying, I know.
You'll never stop him, you know.
Then the monster both acted like an alien from Alien, which is a thing that just wants to shoot its little face out and break your skull for no reason at all. It doesn't eat you.
Yeah, it's just a big insect.
It's just a big insect.
It's just a bug, a big bug.
Guns, cannons, rockets? It's just a bug.
See, man always trying to categorize things in order to understand them. See, Lovecraft ain't interested in just laying down the plot.
No. I know what's real. I know what I am. And nobody pulls my strings.
Forget it, Robbie. I'm an odd man. Nobody pulls my strings. I'm not far now.
In his time, mankind was beginning to understand how remarkably small they were in comparison to the rest of the universe.
Nah, blood. Setting the mood is way more important. After all, every player know you gotta warm the oven before you slide into meat. And that's freaky as hell to think about, man.
She and her developing pink offspring live like parasites in the stolen body of a jelly. This impressive cutlery set and its huge eyes make Phronima a powerful predator.
Well, you know, it's another Lovecraft monster. She's like, what's Lovecraft? And I'm like, this is a whole H.P. Lovecraft game that we've been playing. And but she doesn't care.
When you are a woman with a baby in your body, that baby is going to detach from you, alien style, hopefully a little less gory.
A fully developed emerald jewel wasp will burst out of the roach carcass like a frickin' xenomorph and go on to repeat the cycle.
My body, my choice. Okay, you've got your body, but then there's a part of your body that's going to detach and do something else.
Oh, no. Not again.
So history repeats itself. And what a scary concept, to use that thing as a weapon. Dropping one of those eggs on an enemy territory would be worse than an atom bomb.
There's a mythology to this. Anyway, it's all there in the Necronomicon if you want to look it up.
He has risen, and soon all will be under his rule. It has all been foretold in the Necronomicon.
What kind of book was it?
A treatise on certain kinds of esoteric magic. It's called the Necronomicon.
Come on, Doey. We got some reading to do.
The Necronomicon.
The real Necronomicon. It's the closest I've ever gotten to the actual original text.
And I was shown the book, Necronomicon, okay?
Necronomicon Ex Mortis. Roughly translated, Book of the Dead.
О, какво грозно нещо. Какво е това? Книга ли? Какво?
There's a passageway between our physical world of light, pleasure, and their spiritual world of madness and pain.
To recover potency, and it's got all sorts of different things. The great conjuration of all the powers.
Most of us know it was a book containing many dark spells, something Evil Dead took advantage of.
Within its pages are names, histories, and incantations intended to reveal and bring forth the many entities described in the mythos.
So the book is the source of evil?
No, not the source. More of a passageway.
A gate behind which the demons wait for the chance to take back what is theirs!
I never knew Lovecraft came up with the names Arkham and Necronomicon, which Lovecraft first introduced in the early 1920s.
Pretty soon the whole neighborhood was doing it, and in a little while, it was all over the place.
Yeah, signed copy of the Necronomicon here.
I'm lucky enough to own a signed copy of Necronomicon, and I'll make a video about the book at some time in the future.
You guys scare me. Ha ha ha. Signed, Satan.
The Necronomicon is a book, but it's very rare. Only a few places like Miskatonic University even have a readable copy.
And that theme of storytelling has a lot to do with lore building and world building, and I think that just rests squarely on the Mark Frost side of the Twin Peaks coin.
In a lot of Lovecraft's writing, he mentioned something called Miskatonic Institute.
And I have my MD and PhD in neuroscience from the Miskatonic University. Got married, Dana and I, in 1979. She was a lucky catch.
The book itself is harmless, unless wielded by someone either very evil or very stupid.
Even with the knowledge found in the Necronomicon, mankind is not safe. Even reading the passages can lead one down a path to utter chaos.
Was imprinted on the consciousness of everyone who saw it and forced them to talk about it and, more importantly, to think about it.
It drives people mad when they see it. So if you visualize too much of it, I think it may lose its punch.
Wow. What a stink. Where to keep this thing, in a sewer?
Smells more like rotten eggs.
The aliens that were flying the ship were probably transporting these eggs somewhere to use as a weapon. Against what?
This is some piece of literature. Only it's gonna be a little difficult to follow the story without a translation.
From different translations, there was the Latin translation, there was the Greek translation, there was the English translation, and this author had managed to obtain
Yeah. Wow.
Beware the marriage of the flesh, for that which is taken hath a desire of its own return.
Abdul al-Hazred, the mad Arab.
A crazed Arab who worshipped entities like Yog-Sothoth and Cthulhu.
Migle Wenath, Cthulhu, Re Le Ka, Nagle Fuhuta, Tag, Cthulhu.
Power, the and, kingdom, the is.
But when you open them, they turn out not to be the real thing.
Ia Masaratu Bagaloma Kia!
Am I disturbing you?
No. Just...
Where are you?
You're not from around here, are you?
Where is it you would imagine I am from?
I'm going with the Bullwinkle show.
We never figure out what this thing is, but we know that something bad happened there.
That there's more going on in the universe than just our human technology and science and rationalism. All this religious stuff that people believe in is all nonsense.
But what was theirs now belongs to the world of light and substance. And the old gods, the rightful masters, are jealous.
He wasn't content with just making a good science fiction movie. He was Kubrick and always had to push the envelope.
Something that only the best science fiction films manage to do. Anyway, there's a lot of suspense going on here. Nothing happens for a long time. Then we discover a bunch of eggs that the ship was carrying. Why was it carrying these eggs? Well, that's the beauty of this film.
Taking these archetypal fears and situations and trying to bring a new spin to them.
We see murals on the walls showing the xenomorphs, meaning they must have existed long ago.
We're all afraid of the same things. We're born afraid. We're born crying and screaming, and my God.
Then you can get them for the suspension of disbelief.
Okay, all right, yes. Okay,
all right. This has actually been a favorite of speculation.
There's this line from the movie Contact in which a scientist declares that they should have sent a poet instead of herself.
Some celestial event. No words.
Is that it resembles The Experiment / Monster New York, seen mainly vomiting Garmin Boja into space during the crazy episode 8.
To fly right in line with the sun, so when people look up at it, it's blinded for a minute.
And I was transformed. Worked with absolute focus and concentration on achieving what he had set out to achieve.
You find what you're looking for, Mr. Lovecraft?
The thing is, Lovecraft is generally positioned as an outsider.
Mr. Lovecraft?
He was destitute, alone in a room, blacked out the windows so he could be writing at night, had dreams so that he could write the dreams.
Mr. Lovecraft.
He's the greatest horror writer who ever lived, and his work unlikely ever to be equaled or exceeded.
The elder gods were using H.P. Lovecraft to convey their story.
Their story is completely true.
To build up belief levels to the point at which they could manifest.
This is not reality, not reality, not reality. This is reality. I'm not insane!
There was only one cinema adaptation of Lovecraft that really works, and that is The Reanimator. And it works because it's an atypical Lovecraft story.
It wasn't until Stuart Gordon's Reanimator became a smash that movies started being marketed as Lovecraftian.
You know what? Those villagers really burn me up. It's good I can laugh. Oh.
Who are you?
I am a friend and companion of the night.
O friend and companion of night.
O friend and companion of night.
I rejoice in spilled blood and the baying of dogs.
Thou who rejoiced in the baying of dogs.
He rejoices in spilled blood and the baying of dogs.
You Marilyn Manson?
Here a hideous howl burst forth, and spilt blood.
Oh. I wander among shades and tombs. I am Gorgo and Mormo.
Gorgo, repeated as response. Mormo.
He is Gorgo and Mormo.
And Joe.
Here a whistling sigh occurred.
Repeated with ecstasy.
Repeated with ecstasy.
Hi, I'm Gorgo, but I'm not Mormo of the Thousand-Faced Moon.
Of the Thousand-Faced Moon.
But call me Sue.
What would you have of me?
Look favorably on our sacrifices.
I ask that you know me when I return. I will return. I will return.
Hold on, I'm getting a call from Margot Adler.
Gorgo. Repeated as response. Mormo.
Gorgo, Mormo, you want to help me with this knot?
This is the weirdest big valley ever.
So let's say you find out that the universe is like that. And let's say you find out that a lot of what you find valuable can be explained in scientific terms.
Shall be as a dream, a vision of the night. It shall be as when a hungry man dreams, and behold, he eats, but he awakes, and his soul is empty. Or as when a thirsty man dreams, and behold, he drinks, but he awakes, and behold, he is faint, and his soul has appetite. So shall the multitude of all the nations be that fight against Mount Zion. Stay you and wonder, take your pleasure and be blind. They are drunken, but not with wine. They stagger, but not with strong drink. For the Lord has poured out on you the spirit of deep sleep, and has closed your eyes.
The prophet and your rulers, the seers, hath he covered. And the vision of all.
After a while, I got to a point where I said, basically, this guy can't write a scene. Everything was very static.
Sometimes it's best to say nothing.
You might say, it found me.